Welcome to the FreightWaves TV live streaming Fireside chat here at the AirCargo2020 conference with Matt Bernstein, CEO of Hubtran. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Chad.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is Hubtran?
Sure. So Hubtran is a technology platform. We started the company 5 years ago, and we focus on one thing, which is automating back office work for transportation companies.
Well, I know, as I understand, Hubtran it's a young company, 5 years old, been growing explosively. Like, what's driving your growth?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're very focused on back office automation. It turns out that was just a huge unmet need in the industry. A lot of companies, transportation companies, technology companies have been focusing on operations in the front end, but there's a really compelling value proposition to automating a lot of the back end work, payables, receivables, document management, and we've made it really easy for companies to accomplish that, and it's just been taking off.
Well, I think you just discussed some examples of what back-end automation is. Like, why was there such an unmet need for back office automation?
Yeah. So a lot of folks would talk about transportation companies not being technology forward, and I don't think that was really the driving issue. It really has to do with industry structure. There's, take just domestic truck transportation in the U.S. Yeah, literally hundreds of thousands of different players in this kind of multi-party arrangement where you've got shippers, consignees, brokers, hundreds of thousands of for-hire truckers, factoring companies, and they all have to interact. It's a very fragmented industry, and it's very difficult for companies to converge on a standard. So we took a different approach that made it easy for all of these companies to get those efficiencies and work together more effectively.
Okay, so that's the value proposition. You guys are doing something different than the traditional approaches. There's a lot of cool tech offerings out there, but sometimes these companies, we see them and they've got a lot of cool factor, but do they have like the actual deliverables? How does Hubtran distinguish itself from the other players in the industry offering this back office automation?
So when we started the company 5 years ago and really started with our first customer, probably about after a year of developing the tech, so in the neighborhood of 4 years ago, we wanted to be valuable to that first customer on day one, and I think we achieved our goal. So most of our growth, and we have north of 300 customers now, has come through that kind of word of mouth and customer referrals. And the technologies just focus like a laser on helping these companies take work out of how they manage all these incoming documents, and there's just a huge volume, very chaotic inflow of documents from all sorts of parties. How they digitize that, get a lot faster, take labor out of the equation, and improve accuracy. And so, what we do with all of our customers before we get started is we identify kind of what the goals are and how they're going to benefit from those goals, and then we measure the hell out of it. So it is very, very tangible.
Okay, so you measure it. How do your customers, how do they measure it and know that they've achieved whatever it is that you guys are providing them?
Sure. So let's just take just one really straightforward example where, say, we're working with a forwarder or a freight broker, 3PL, that's getting all this documentation in, paperwork, et cetera, usually via email from a wide variety of companies, vendors, carriers, agents, et cetera. And what we start with is trying to measure, well, how many people do you have doing this work today? How are they doing it? And now with this tool, we're going to train these folks. You're going to have less work per document, per shipment, per load, and getting in place kind of ways that not only can they the people work smarter and faster, but then how are they going to redeploy those folks so that they can kind of power their company up? And we have kind of the week one plan, the month one plan, and you just move it forward with the customer so that they can see, again, those benefits on labor savings. Typically, these companies are getting starting in the first couple of weeks, 4x gains. So in other words, it took somebody 4 minutes to do something. Now they can do it in a minute. And there's lots of ways they can, kind of take that productivity to improve their company from there.
It seems super tangible. It seems super measurable and like a very clear workflow. It's very interesting. A lot of the tech too, though, it's complicated to use.
Yeah.
Like what's Hubtran doing? Do they say it's complicated or is it easy to use? How do you guys work with that?
Right. So when we started, again, with our first customer 4 years ago, nobody had heard of Hubtran.
Right.
Nobody wanted to invest a lot of time, money, or effort into something that was an unknown quantity. So we had to make it really easy for folks to use. And I think that you can look at that in a few different dimensions. So one is Hubtran is a kind of pure SaaS offering. Mm-hmm. So these companies don't need to install hardware, install software, worry about upgrades. Basically, if they have a browser, email, and we just then provide credentials to their users, train them, and they're off to the races. It's literally that simple. Okay. Part of that is because we've pre-integrated with the TMS, the transportation management systems that these companies use. So they don't have to do that integration work, that setup work. It's done for them. Nice. In addition, our system, our technology, relies on machine learning. So, in this hyper-fragmented industry that I mentioned, there's all these different documents. Well, the analog for machine learning and, technology that people use every day is, for example, facial recognition that you might see, in, kind of Google or Facebook's, platforms. Yeah. Well, we've applied that to transportation documents. So day one, for any new customer, Hubtran is able to read and analyze these documents and then relate it to the information in their transportation management system. They don't have to do any work, it just happens. There's another aspect too, which is in terms of the business model, how we price to customers. We, again, just try and make it very simple. It's by the drink, pay as you go. So you're really buying what you use. And if, on a given day, you decide that you don't want to use Hubtran anymore, stop using it. So we try and make it simple kind of in every way we can. Wow.
You said that originally you guys were working with 3PLs, domestic freight brokers. I think that we've already been learning that, they say that the AirCargo conference is for all the rest of us, but it all connects. What brings you guys here to the AirCargo conference?
Yeah. So we started serving domestic, over-the-road freight brokers and 3PLs. So they're essentially handling truck moves. Yeah. From there, we started serving transportation factoring companies. These are factoring companies who provide receivables financing to truckers. Well, we started talking with a lot of our customers who, typically, very often you'll see a freight broker that also has a forwarding division or a large forwarding company that has a small brokerage. So we got introduced to forwarding through our customers who wanted to have us serve them on the forwarding side. And that need is there. It's very, forwarding is very transaction intensive, a ton of data entry, ton of manual work, ton of documents. So we're pretty excited about it.
Well, that is fascinating. Lots of documents to deal with. You guys, having started 5 years ago in 2015, right? 2015. That's right. So you have seen the explosion right in the middle of that time. It seems like you guys must have really seen some dramatic changes with the technology. Where do you guys see Hubtran going now that you got this momentum? What's the next year look like?
Yeah, sure. So we've got a pretty full product roadmap. As I mentioned, we use machine learning to really, on the front end, be able to intelligently read and analyze these documents. And, we've come a long way, but we think we've really, in a sense, just barely scratched the surface on what that technology can do in terms of really going deeper into these companies' operations to automate a whole range of activities. So, for example, in forwarding, our initial product is simply analyzing all these incoming documents that come in, at all points, all junctures during the shipment process, from the very beginning to the very end, from a variety of companies. And what Hubtran is doing is indexing these documents. In other words, it's telling the company what kind of document it is, and then automatically routing that document to the correct, say, shipment in the TMS. Well, there's so much more we can do with forwarders around automating payables and automating the shipment creation process, automating, there's a lot of customs forms that need to be kind of manually keystroked to be populated. So it's really just kind of understanding how these companies do work, where that manual work is, and how we can apply this technology in a way to save them money, let them work faster.
Yeah, automating the complicated stuff that nobody really wants to do, and we do it slower than the machines can.
It's not the sexy kind of stuff where people have poured a ton of investment into digital freight matching, optimization, rating, routing, all that good stuff, which is super important. Again, we're kind of focused in an area that just to date hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and we think there's just huge value.
Yes, well, that is fantastic. It's good to meet with you, good to learn more about what Hubtran is doing. How do people reach out to learn more?
Sure. So, well, let me just give a general email address that everybody can get really quickly. It's sales@hubtran.com.
Boom.
And we'll follow up from there.
Okay, thank you so much. Good to meet with you, Mads.
Thanks, Chad.